Before you continue, stop. Ask yourself a question. How hungry are you right now? Not physically. I'm not talking about an empty stomach. I'm talking about a different kind of hunger. About that emptiness inside that cannot be filled with food. The Cree, Ojibwe, Algonquin peoples, the indigenous inhabitants of lands where winter reigns for 9 months of the year, they knew a truth that we have forgotten. Hunger is not just a sensation, it is a door, and on the other side of that door, something ancient waits. Its name is Wendigo. In the Algonquin language, this word means the evil that devours, or the evil spirit that consumes. But this is not a fairy tale for children. This is a warning passed down from generation to generation. A warning about what can happen when a human loses their humanity. In the forests of northern Canada, from Quebec to Manitoba, from the Great Lakes to the borders of permafrost, there exists a law that must never be broken under any circumstances. Never give in to despair, never taste forbidden food, and never, never let greed take hold of you. Because the Wendigo is not just a monster lurking in the shadows. It is a curse. It is a transformation. It is what you can become if you open the door too wide. By listening to this story, you invite its knowledge into your mind. And knowledge is a scent. The scent of fear, curiosity, hunger. And the Wendigo can smell that scent from miles away. It already knows you are here. It is already coming. Make sure you are fed. Make sure your home is warm, and that you are not alone. Because what you are about to hear will change the way you look at winter forests forever. What does the Wendigo look like? Ancient descriptions vary, but all agree on one thing. It is a creature that cannot be forgotten once seen. Its height ranges from 12 to 15 feet. Some witnesses said it was as tall as the tallest pines, that it towered over cabins and looked through second-story windows. Its limbs are disproportionately long. Its arms nearly reach the ground when it stands. The fingers end in claws like shards of ice, sharp, translucent, deadly. The Wendigo's skin is the skin of a corpse that has lain in the snow. Pale green or gray, it is stretched so tightly over the bones that it seems about to burst. This is the symbol of its curse. No matter how much it eats, it is never satisfied. Its body does not digest food. It only grows, becomes bigger, heavier, but the hunger does not recede. They say it ate its own lips in a fit of mad hunger, exposing the fangs with which it tears the flesh of its victims. But the most terrible thing is its eyes. They do not simply glow, they rotate in their sockets, like those of a dead man who has not yet realized he is dead. Some describe them as burning coals, others as yellow lanterns visible through a blizzard from a mile away. The Wendigo's gaze causes paralyzing terror. Victims say they feel their will breaking, as if their very soul is trying to escape from their body. And it brings winter with it. Wherever the Wendigo appears, the temperature drops to -40 in a matter of minutes. Ice storms, sudden blizzards, snow tornadoes. This is not weather. This is its presence. It is a walking catastrophe, the embodiment of the most evil, most merciless aspect of winter. If you see a clear sky suddenly darken for no reason, if the wind begins to howl as if it were a living creature, if the temperature drops so sharply that your breath turns to ice on your lips, it means it is close, very close. How is a Wendigo born? The story always begins the same way: harsh winter, isolation, despair. Imagine 1847, Northern Ontario. A group of miners, 6 men, are trapped in a remote cabin by a sudden blizzard. They planned to stay here for a week. 3 weeks passed. Food supplies ran out after 10 days. One of them, let's call him Elias Crow, was known for his greed. He took more food than he was allotted. He hid crackers in his pockets. He was one of those who always wanted more. On the 12th day, one of his companions, a young fellow named Thomas, weakened to the point where he could not stand. He lay against the wall, breathing irregularly, his eyes rolling back. The others discussed how to stretch the last crumbs of flour. But Elias looked at Thomas differently. He did not see a friend, not a human. He saw meat. Ancient Algonquin legends say, "He who consumes human flesh lets the evil spirit of the forest into himself." This is not a metaphor. This is literal. Cannibalism is not just taboo. It is an invitation. It is the opening of a door behind which an ancient entity waits, seeking a body. Elias waited until night. The others were asleep. He took a knife and did what could not be done. The first bite caused nausea. He vomited for hours. Blood flowed from his nose, from his mouth. But he did not die. Legends say that at that moment, Elias Crow was no more. His soul was displaced. In its place came something else. Something hungry. Something infinitely hungry. By morning, the others woke to find only Thomas's bones. Elias stood by the window, his back to them. His shoulders twitched. When he turned around, they saw that his lips were bloodied, but not with blood. He had eaten his own lips. His eyes were no longer human. "I'm still hungry," he rasped in a voice that no longer belonged to a man. 3 managed to escape. 2 did not. 3 days later, hunters found the cabin. Inside were only bones and tracks in the snow, massive with claws, leading deep into the forest. Elias Crow had disappeared, but the Wendigo was born. Since then, people have disappeared in those parts every winter. Sometimes bodies are found. Sometimes only bones, gnawed so clean as if licked by someone with infinite patience. The Wendigo is not just a monster. It is a perfect hunter, created by winter itself for one purpose: to devour. During the day, it is dangerous. At night, invincible. It moves with such speed that the human eye cannot catch it. Survivors describe it as a shadow that crosses a clearing in an instant, or wind with claws. But it does not kill immediately. It plays with its food. One of its favorite tactics is mimicry. The Wendigo can imitate human voices with eerie accuracy. You might hear the cry for help of your child calling you from the darkness of the forest. The voice of your wife asking to be let into the house. The voice of your brother begging for help. It is a trap. Elders in the reservations tell children, if you hear the voice of a loved one on a winter night calling you from the forest, do not answer. Do not go there. Even if it really is your brother, even if he really is in danger, you cannot help anymore. The Wendigo is already with him. But the Wendigo's most terrible weapon is Wendigo fever. This is not a disease in the usual sense. This is a curse of consciousness. It begins with a smell. The victim suddenly begins to smell a strange, sweetish odor of decay. No one else smells it, only them. The smell intensifies day by day, becomes unbearable. The victim washes their hands until they bleed, burns their clothes, but the smell does not go away, because it is inside. Then come the nightmares. The victim sees themselves devouring human flesh. They wake up with the taste of blood in their mouth, though their mouth was closed. And then comes the fire. The victim's feet begin to burn from within. The pain is so unbearable that the person tears off their shoes, their clothes, and runs naked into the frozen forest at -30. They run, screaming in pain, not feeling the cold. Only fire. Fire that devours their feet. And then the Wendigo emerges from the shadows. It was waiting. It always waits. There are records from 18th century missionaries describing cases of winter madness among the indigenous population. People would suddenly start screaming that their feet were burning, tear off their clothes, and run into the forest naked. They were found days later, frozen, their faces contorted in horror. And sometimes they were not found at all. Only tracks, human tracks that suddenly stopped, and beyond, tracks of something massive with claws. But here is the terrifying truth. You do not have to eat human flesh to become a Wendigo. Sometimes it is enough to simply believe you will become one. Historical records document a phenomenon that anthropologists called Wendigo psychosis. This is a condition where a person begins to believe they are transforming into a Wendigo. They feel a growing hunger that no food can satisfy. They begin to see those around them as food. They panic in fear that at any moment they will lose control and attack their loved ones. One of the most famous cases is the story of Jack Fiddler, a Cree shaman who lived in the late 19th to early 20th century. Jack claimed that over his lifetime he killed 14 Wendigos, but they were all people. People who, according to him, had begun to transform. He killed them before the transformation was complete to save the others. In 1907, Canadian authorities arrested Jack Fiddler for murder. He explained, "They asked me to kill them. They felt they were becoming Wendigo. They did not want to kill their families." Jack was sentenced to imprisonment. He hanged himself in his cell before the trial began. But cases of psychosis did not stop. In the 1960s, psychiatrists in Canada recorded several patients from the indigenous population who demonstrated identical symptoms: refusal to eat, paranoid fear of cannibalism, conviction that their body was changing. One patient screamed that he could feel his heart turning to ice. Modern psychiatry calls this a culture-specific syndrome, but shamans say otherwise. The Wendigo is not a disease of the body, it is a disease of the soul. It is what happens when a person forgets they are human. And here is the question no one can answer. What if Wendigo psychosis is not a hallucination? What if it is the beginning of a real transformation? What if Jack Fiddler was right? What if he really saw what others could not see? Skeptics will say, these are just myths, scary stories told around campfires to keep children from wandering too far from home. But then how do you explain cases documented not by shamans, but by European colonists, missionaries, police? 1878, Fort Churchill, Manitoba. A party of Hudson's Bay Company traders sets out on an expedition. Of 8 men, 3 returned. They said that the others were taken by something enormous during a night camp. One of the survivors, Thomas Henderson, insisted until the end of his life that he saw a giant with deer antlers whose eyes burned like lanterns. Henderson killed himself a year later, hanged himself in his home. In his suicide note, he wrote, "I still hear it calling me by name." The story of the Otherman family in northern Quebec. A farm family of 5 disappeared in winter. In spring, neighbors found their house. Inside, signs of a horrifying struggle. Blood on the walls, furniture overturned, but not a single body. Only massive tracks in the snow leading from the house into the forest. Tracks of bare human feet that gradually transformed into tracks with claws. The 1920s, a series of disappearances of lumberjacks in the Great Lakes region. Over 3 years, 17 people went missing, all in winter, all within a 50-mile radius of the same patch of forest. Locals called this place Hunger Mile and refused to go there. Authorities organized large-scale searches but found only 3 of the missing. All 3 were dead, their bodies gnawed. The official version, wolf attack. But hunters knew wolves do not gnaw bones so clean, and they do not stack them in neat piles. And now the present day, 2003, Ontario. A group of tourists goes hiking. One of them, Mark Lee, falls behind the group. When they return for him, he is gone. But his backpack is on the ground, and next to it, his boots, neatly unlaced and placed side by side. Mark Lee was never found. The search lasted 2 weeks, but one of the rescuers later told journalists, "We found tracks, barefoot tracks in the snow. They led north. We followed them for almost 5 miles, and then they just disappeared, as if he took flight, or as if someone picked him up." Canadian blogger Jacob Wright sets out on an expedition to remote areas of Labrador to debunk the Wendigo myth. He kept a video blog, posting recordings every day. On the 5th day, he recorded a strange video. He is sitting in his tent, whispering to the camera, "I hear voices. My brother is calling me. But my brother died 3 years ago." This was his last recording. The tent was found a week later. It was torn from the inside. The camera was working, but on the recording, only a black screen and sound. Heavy breathing, and the crunch of snow under heavy footsteps. Skeptics explain each case rationally. Wild animals, hypothermia, psychosis. But they cannot explain the pattern. They cannot explain why all these cases occur in the same places, at the same time of year, and always when a person is alone and hungry. If the Wendigo is real, if it truly hunts in the Canadian forests, then how do you survive? The elders of the Cree, Ojibwe, and Algonquin peoples passed down rules from generation to generation. These are not superstitions. This is knowledge bought with the blood of those who did not follow the advice. Rule 1. Never travel alone in winter. The Wendigo hunts the solitary. It does not attack groups of more than 3 people. Why? No one knows. Perhaps because it needs the victim's isolation. Perhaps because it feeds not only on flesh, but on despair. Rule 2. Always carry fire with you. Not an electric flashlight, living flame. Matches, a lighter, a torch. The Wendigo does not hate fire because it fears it. It brings cold that extinguishes flame in seconds. But fire leaves the smell of smoke, which masks the smell of fear. And it is fear that attracts the Wendigo most of all. Rule 3. Never answer voices in the forest, even if it is your mother's voice, even if it is a child's cry, even if every cell in your body screams that you must help. Do not answer. Do not go there. If it really is a person in trouble, in the morning you will find tracks. But if it is the Wendigo, you will become its food. Rule 4. Tobacco. Indigenous peoples always carried tobacco with them, not for smoking, for protection. If you feel its presence, cold, the smell of decay, whispers on the wind, throw a pinch of tobacco into the fire and say a prayer. Any prayer. It does not matter in what language. Intention matters. The Wendigo was once human. Deep inside, in what remains of its soul, there is memory, and tobacco is a reminder of the humanity it lost. Rule 5. If you smell a strange odor, an odor that should not be there, a sweetish smell of decay that only you can smell, leave the forest immediately. Do not wait for morning. Do not gather your things. Run, because it means it has chosen you. You have a few hours, at most a day, before the fever begins. Rule 6. Silver. Yes, like in werewolf stories, but not because silver is magical. Silver reflects, and the Wendigo avoids its reflection. Why? The elders say, because if it sees what it has become, the last spark of humanity inside it might tear it apart from within, from horror. Wear a silver pendant, knife, even a coin. If you see it, raise the silver. It might retreat. Might. Rule 7. Never eat alone in the forest in winter. It sounds strange, but it is important. The act of consuming food in isolation, in hunger, in despair, this is what opens the door. If you must eat, do it quickly, surrounded by others, without enjoying it. Because the Wendigo senses greed. It senses the pleasure of consumption, and this attracts it, like blood attracts a shark. But here is the truth that shamans do not like to voice. If it has truly chosen you, if the fever has begun, there is almost no salvation. There is only one way: to find a shaman who will perform an exorcism ritual. But there are almost no such shamans left. Most have died. Some refuse to perform the ritual because it is dangerous for the shaman himself. One Cree elder told an anthropologist in the 1980s, "You ask how to kill the Wendigo, but that is the wrong question. The right question is how not to become one." You are still here. You listened to the end. Why? Curiosity? Or something else? You feel it, don't you? That slight feeling of discomfort at the back of your neck. The urge to look over your shoulder, to check if you are alone in the room. I must tell you something important. The Wendigo is not limited to Canada. This is a common misconception. Yes, that is its homeland, but legends say it can hibernate for decades and then awaken anywhere. Where there is cold, where there is hunger, where there is isolation. Anthropologists have documented similar legends in Russia about cannibal leshies, in Scandinavia about Dropnir, creatures that were once human but ate human flesh and lost their souls. In Appalachia, USA, about not deer, creatures that look almost like deer, but not quite. Too tall, too wrong, and they mimic human voices. What if all of this is the same archetype, the same entity that travels the world, following cold and hunger? And now think, you have just spent 30 minutes inviting this knowledge into your mind. You imagined its appearance. You imagined its hunger. You felt its presence. And according to indigenous legends, this matters. Because the Wendigo does not hunt randomly. It chooses. It chooses those who know about it, those who think about it, those who imagine it. Knowledge is a scent. Your fear is a beacon. Right now, stop for a second. Listen. Do you hear something? A creak outside the window? A rustle that was not there a minute ago? No? Are you sure? And now think, when was the last time you truly ate? Not snacked, not grabbed something on the go, but truly satisfied yourself, felt fullness, satisfaction? Or is there still that emptiness inside you, that strange causeless hunger that does not go away? The Wendigo feeds not only on flesh, it feeds on dissatisfaction, on greed, on the eternal not enough. And in the modern world, where everyone always lacks something, where advertising constantly tells us that we are incomplete without this product, this experience, this body, it has never been stronger. Perhaps that is why disappearances in forests are growing every year. In North America alone, over the past 10 years, more than 1,600 people have gone missing in national parks, most in winter. Many are found without shoes, without clothes, miles from the point of disappearance. The official version is that hypothermia causes paradoxical undressing. But some rangers whisper, no hypothermia will make a person run barefoot 15 miles through snow. And now, one last warning. If tonight you smell a strange odor in your room, an odor that should not be there, sweet like rotting meat, but with a hint of something cold. If your feet begin to burn, not on the outside, from within, as if lava flows in your bones. If you wake up and find that you got out of bed, walked to the window, and do not remember how you did it, do not run, because if you run, you have already lost. You have done exactly what it wants. Instead, light a fire, call someone, turn on all the lights in the house. Do not stay in the dark. Do not stay alone. And remember, the Wendigo can wait years for the right moment. It is patient. It may choose you today, but come in a month, in a year, in 10 years, when you are weak, when you are alone, when you are hungry. It is in no hurry. It has all the time in the world. One last thing. Right now, look over your shoulder. No, seriously, look over your shoulder. Nothing there, right? Are you sure? Because one of the Wendigo's features, you never see it directly, only out of the corner of your eye, only in reflections, only when it is already too late. Thank you for listening to the end. Avoid greed, stay fed, and never, never listen to voices in the winter forest, because if you hear them, it already knows where you live.